The family of Lot, a story of faith, choices, and consequences. Hello dear friend, and welcome to the channel Miracles of History. I'm so glad you're here. Please don't forget to leave your like, share this video with friends and family, and subscribe to the channel, so you can continue exploring incredible stories from the Bible and historical narratives that reveal lessons for our lives even today. Who was Lot, really? And how did he become involved in such a controversial and morally complex story, ultimately culminating in incest with his own daughters? A narrative that continues to shock, intrigue, and even confuse readers across generations. Why does the Bible mention his name so frequently, emphasizing his significance within Abraham's journey and in the unfolding story of God's chosen people? In this video, we will carefully examine each major episode of Lot's life, highlighting the decisions he made, the consequences he faced, and the lessons we can learn from them, showing how his choices influenced not only his own destiny, but also the course of history for generations to come. Lot was the son of Haran and the grandson of Terah, the same Terah who fathered three notable sons, Abraham, Nar, and Haran himself. This clearly establishes that Lot was Abraham's nephew, which created a deep familial bond that would later prove crucial in both practical and spiritual terms. Abraham, recognizing the vulnerability of his young nephew and understanding the early loss Lot had suffered with the death of his father, decided to take Lot with him on the long journey from Ur of the Chaldeans in Mesopotamia to the land of Canaan, taking on the role of protector, mentor, and almost a spiritual father, providing guidance and teaching him about faith, morality, and devotion to God, even though Lot was not yet ready to fully embrace this spiritual path. The death of Haran, Lot's father, is closely tied to a defining episode in Abraham's life. Abraham began challenging the pervasive idolatry within his family, questioning why people devoted themselves to lifeless statues that could neither hear nor act. In a bold and courageous gesture, Abraham destroyed all the idols in his father's household, leaving only one standing as a symbolic lesson, demonstrating the futility of idol worship and the need to recognize the one true God. This act of defiance alarmed Terah, who decided to take both Abraham and Haran to Nimrod, a king known for his absolute power, tyranny, and self-proclaimed divinity, who demanded worship from his subjects. Nimrod confronted Abraham, accusing him of blasphemy for destroying the idols, and threatened to execute him by throwing him into a blazing furnace to test whether the God Abraham served could truly save him. Haran, unsure of what to believe, hesitated and waited to see the outcome. Miraculously, Abraham emerged from the furnace completely unharmed, thanks to divine intervention, a clear demonstration of God's protection. Encouraged, but tragically overconfident, Haran then entered the furnace himself and was consumed by the flames, leaving Lot orphaned at a young age. This left Abraham with the responsibility to guide Lot, both physically and spiritually, ensuring that his nephew would be raised with some understanding of God's will and the principles of faith, morality, and justice. Even though Lot struggled to fully embrace these teachings, as Abraham and Lot journeyed together, it became increasingly clear that Lot was more concerned with material gain, comfort, and personal advantage than with spiritual growth. This tension first became visible in the management of their herds. Lot's shepherds frequently trespassed on the lands of others, taking resources unlawfully to feed their flocks, while Abraham's shepherds remained fair, just, and faithful to God's laws. Conflicts between the two groups became inevitable, and Lot, frustrated and desiring autonomy, declared, "Uncle, enough. Let us separate and go our own ways." Abraham, with unwavering patience, love, and understanding, accepted Lot's decision, giving him the freedom to choose his own path and exercise his independence. Even though it would ultimately lead to choices that brought hardship, Lot chose to settle in Sodom, a city abundant in resources, wealth, and fertility, yet steeped in moral corruption, sexual immorality, and spiritual decay. There, he built his household, started his family, and gradually distanced himself from Abraham's guidance, following a path that prioritized wealth and comfort over righteousness. Despite Lot's choices, Abraham continued to care deeply for his nephew, as seen when Lot was captured during a war between 4 powerful kings and 5 lesser kings, demonstrating courage, strategic intelligence, and profound familial devotion. Abraham gathered 318 men and executed a successful surprise attack, rescuing Lot and restoring his freedom, highlighting Abraham's unwavering commitment to family and justice. Even after being rescued, Lot returned to Sodom, immersing himself in its pervasive sin. Observing the extreme corruption and depravity of Sodom and neighboring cities, God resolved to destroy these cities entirely. 2 angels were sent to save Lot, his wife, and his daughters, while the cities were engulfed in destruction. Lot welcomed the angels into his home, an act reflecting hospitality, loyalty, and respect for divine principles he had learned from Abraham, despite living in a city dominated by wickedness. To protect his guests from the perverse inhabitants of Sodom, Lot offered his 2 virgin daughters, a morally complex and tragic act meant to prevent harm to the angels, which would have long-lasting consequences for his family. As the destruction unfolded, Lot's wife looked back, disobeying God's command, and was turned into a pillar of salt, a permanent reminder of Sodom's wickedness and the importance of obedience to divine guidance. Lot escaped with his 2 daughters, finding refuge in the desert near the Dead Sea. Facing uncertainty and fear for the survival of humanity, believing the world had been utterly destroyed, his daughters devised a plan to preserve their family line by intoxicating their father. In this tragic scenario, incestuous relations occurred, resulting in pregnancies. Yet God, recognizing their intention to preserve life, allowed the children to be born, ensuring the continuation of their lineage despite the moral complexity of the act. The elder daughter named her son Moab, reflecting the shame associated with the incestuous act, while the younger named her son Ammon, attempting to soften the memory of the event. These descendants went on to become the nations of Moab and Ammon, who later had conflicts with Israel but remained integral to God's plan. From Moab came Ruth, the great-grandmother of King David, and from Ammon came Naamah, a significant figure in Ammonite history. Thus, even in situations marked by moral failure, tragedy, and human imperfection, God's providence ensured that his purposes were fulfilled, demonstrating that divine plans can emerge even from human mistakes, and that from flawed actions, God can still create meaningful and impactful futures. If this content has nourished your understanding, just as manna fed the Israelites in the desert, please leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video so more people can learn these valuable truths. May God bless you and your family abundantly. And we will meet again in the next video with more fascinating stories from history and scripture.